Jai Anilo Premadano Paramakacho Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, His Divinity Founder, Swami Prabhupada, Maharaj, Vaishnava, Nama Chadashvatidas Thakur Ki, the whole Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Sri Bhaktivedanta Sri Bhakti Bhaktivedanta Shri Radha Krishna Goswami Radha Vrindavan Madhuratam Maya Punamavidam Ganga Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Samaveda Bhakta Ki Sankirtan Ki Sri Sri Radha Chandra Ki all praise the Sun, all praise the Sun, all praise the Sun. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19, Text 15. Tam Mokayatam Pratihantu Vipra Ganga Devi Dhritta Chitam Ishe Vijapasvishtaha Kuhakas Sakshako Dashatu Alam Gayata Vishnu Gataha Tam Makoyayatam Pratiyantu Vipra Tambopayatam Pratiyantu Vipra Ganga Chadevi Dhritashitam Eshe Ganga Chadevi Dhritashitam Eshe Vijo Pasishta Kupakasta Shakova Vijo Paspristas Puhapasta Shakova Dashat Valam Gayata Vishnu Gataha Dashat Valam Gayata Vishnu Gataha Tammo Payatam Pratiyantu Vipra Ganga Chadevi Dhritashitam Ishe Vijo Paspista Kuhakas Takshakova Dashat Valam Gayata Vishnu Gataha
Tammo Bayantam Patiyantu Vipra Ganga Chadevi Dhritashitam Ishe Vijo Paspista Kuhakas Takshova Dasat Valam Gayata Vishnu Gataha
Ladies.
Tammo Bayatam Pratiyantu Vipra Ganga Chadevi Dhritashitam Ishe Vijo Pasishta Kuhakas Takshakova Dasat Alam Gayata Vishnu Gataha Tammo Bayatam Pratiyantu Vipra Ganga Chadevi Dhritashitam Ishe Vijo Pasishta Kuhakas Takshakova Dasat Alam Gayata Vishnu Gataha Samopayatam Patiyantu Vipra
Sammopayatam Katiyantu Vipra
Gangata Devi Drita Mishe
Tangasadevi Vidachitanishe
Nijo Pashista Kuhakaslakshapoga
Nijo Parisha Purakasamrupa
Chachalam Gayata Vishnugata
Ashanabalam Gayata Vishnagata
For that reason.
For that reason,
Ma,
Ma,
me,
me,
Upayatam,
Upayatam,
taking shelter of,
taking shelter of,
Patiyantu,
Patiyantu,
just accept me,
just accept me,
Vipraha,
Vipraha,
all Brahmins,
all Brahmins,
Ganga,
Ganga,
Mother Ganges,
Mother Ganges,
Cha,
Cha,
also,
also,
Devi,
Devi,
direct representative of the Lord,
direct representative of the Lord,
Gita,
Gita,
taking into,
taking into,
Chitam,
Chittam,
heart,
heart,
Ishe,
Ishe,
unto the Lord,
unto the Lord,
Dvija Upashrista,
Bija Vasishtha,
created by the Brahman,
created by the Brahma,
Rakaha,
Rakaha,
something magical,
Something magical.
Takshakaha,
Ashakaha,
the snake bird,
the snake bird,
Va,
Ra,
either,
either,
Dashatu,
Vishatu,
let it bite,
let it bite,
Alam,
Alam,
without further delay,
without further delay,
Gayata,
Gayata,
please go on singing,
please go on singing,
Vishnu Gata,
Vishnugata,
narration of the deeds of Vishnu.
narration of the deeds of Krishna.
Translation. O Brahmins, just accept me as a completely surrendered soul, and let Mother Ganges, the representative of the Lord, also accept me in that way. For I have already taken the lotus feet of the Lord into my heart. Let the snake bird, or whatever magical thing the Brahmin created, bite me at once. I only desire that you all continue singing the deeds of Lord Vishnu. Purport by Prabhupada. As soon as one is given up completely unto the lotus feet of the Lord, he is not at all afraid of death. The atmosphere created by the presence of great devotees of the Lord on the bank of the Ganges, and Maharaj Parikshit's complete acceptance of the lotus feet were a sufficient guarantee to the king for going back to Godhead. He thus became absolutely free from all fear of death. We'll repeat the translation. O Brahmins, just accept me as a completely surrendered soul, and let Mother Ganges, the representative of the Lord, also accept me in that way. For I have already taken the lotus feet of the Lord into my heart. Let the snake bird, or whatever magical thing the Brahmin created, bite me at once. I only desire that you all continue singing the deeds of Lord Vishnu. Here is a position which we can all aspire to attain. To be completely sheltered at the lotus feet of the Lord. Maharaj Parikshit, powerful king, an emperor of the world, a person who could have defended himself against any opposition, especially the opposition of an unwarranted curse, does not try to defend himself, but is fixed in his meditation in the lotus feet of the Lord. The same is seen in the personality of Prahlad Maharaj, who underwent so many trials and tribulations because of having an atheistic father an atheistic father who saw no problem with even killing his own son. His heart was so cruel that he could kill a very devoted son like Prahlad. And yet Prahlad did not make any effort to avoid his father's wrath. He did not try to compromise his beliefs in any way. When directly asked by his father what were the teachings which he had learned in school, he told him that I have learned that Vishnu is the Supreme Lord, that one should take all shelter of Vishnu, that all power which you have is derived from Vishnu. In other words, he praised his father's enemy, even though it would mean that he would be risking his own life. So, this type of mentality is possible when one has taken a willing decision to embrace the lotus feet of the Lord in one's heart. Each one of us has so many different services or activities, types of work that we perform. We may be engaged in activities directly here in the temple, or we may be engaged in activities outside, which may be for earning livelihood or studying or whatever it may be. And these activities are somewhat more favorable or unfavorable one to another in comparison. But ultimately, what will determine how much these activities are useful to us spiritually is the motive by which we perform these activities. If these activities are performed for the pleasure of the spiritual master and of the Supreme Lord, then they are favorable. They are bhakti. They help to bring us closer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So this mood which Maharaj Parikshit has is the type of mood that we must all have. We must be grounded so much in our relationship with Guru and Krishna that under even the most reverse of circumstances, we will not forget the Lord for a moment. What else is there worth achieving? All sorts of goals are no more valuable than the foam on the top of the waves. Very temporary. Foam gathers on the top of the waves in the ocean, and in another second, it is blown away. So our various accomplishments in this world for profit, for adoration, for distinction, are very temporary. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore said, Nandanam Najanam Nasundari Kavakadata. From an Ishvari Bhagata Bhakti Kitvari. This is what he wants. As long as I get your devotional service, I can give up all of those other things. He said, even though I may take birth again and again, that same mood is there in the next verse. Maharaj Parikshit, he's not saying, I know that I'm going to go back to Godhead now. He says that if I have to take birth, if I should again take my birth in the material world, I will have complete attachment. This is what he's praying for. I will have complete attachment to the unlimited Lord Krishna, association with his devotees, and friendly relations with all living beings. So these should be our primary relationships. Complete attachment to the unlimited Lord Krishna. What does complete attachment mean? This question is often asked by members of every type of religion. What does it mean to be completely attached to the Lord? Some say that it means to be attached to his teachings, whereas others say it means to just lead a good life, just like so many persons find it difficult to be attached to each and every teaching of the Lord. So they simply try to lead a good life, a good religious life, a pious life. But we see that there is so much doctrine, so many teachings, which clearly spell out what that good life is. And to try to water down, to compromise any one of these means that the life that we lead will not be so good. When we read the stories, for example, of Maharaj, we may like to be absorbed in remembering these stories, or in the stories, the pastimes of Krishna. We may feel that that is the ideal, to read the scriptures again and again. But within the scriptures, we find that there are many teachings. It is not simply that if we read again and again the pastimes of Krishna from the 10th canto, but if we neglect the Bhagavad Gita teachings, then we'll achieve perfection. Why? Because while you are reading, you may be absorbed in remembering these wonderful pastimes. But when you close the book, you come face to face with this ugly material world. And so it's sort of like going to the theater or drama. For a while you're absorbed and you feel very nice. But then when you come out into the day and see all of the uber karma, the results of so many unwanted materialistic arrangements, a gross civilization, it's like a very big nightmare. However, if you understand the teachings of Krishna, then not only will you appreciate Krishna's pastimes when you read them, but you'll also see this world in the context of those teachings. You'll be able to adjust your situation in such a way that while you're in the movie theater or out of the movie theater, you're equally happy. The teachings are important, and it's not just that we can accept some teachings and reject others. That's not also possible when it says that I want to be completely attached to the unlimited Lord Krishna. It means that we have to accept all of his teachings. Sometimes persons say that one teaching is as good as another, and if I accept this, it's okay, and if I reject this, it's not so bad. No, again, it means that all the teachings have to be accepted. And how shall we know how to accept them? On the basis of our previous acharyas. As far as interpretation goes, everybody may give their own interpretation of what a particular teaching is. But we have to finally appeal to authority. And that's why we have the purports. And that's why Srila Prabhupada gave more importance even than reading the verse to the reading of the purports. Because the purports pin down specific meanings of the teachers. And we should not think that we can throw away all of these teachings, or any one of them. Neither we should think that we can just, as I said, absorb ourselves in what took place some 5,000 years ago when Krishna was personally present. Those who were present with Krishna at the time certainly could take shelter of whatever Krishna said and did. They directly had Krishna's association. Now, what are we to do some 5,000 years later? Well, we have our recourse to Krishna's association. We can associate with him through his holy name. We can associate through him through his deity form. We can associate through him with the prasadam. But most of all, we can contact Krishna through his teachings, through the doctrines, through the creeds, which establish how it is to reach out to Krishna. If we neglect the teachings of Krishna, it is very unlikely that we will be able to get the benefit of the chanting of the names, of the darshan of the deity, of the benefit of taking prasad. Because the teachings are the method that when Krishna disappeared, it is said that he left behind this Srimad Bhagavatam so that people of this age could get light. So this is really what we're talking about when it says to have complete attachment to the unlimited Lord Krishna. When one gains a complete attachment, then that attachment may manifest in various ways. And someone may be more absorbed in chanting, someone may be more absorbed in deity worship, etc. But in the beginning, we learn by hearing. And Maharaj Krishna's example is an example which all of us need to follow. At the most essential time of his life, what did he do? He took advantage of the teachings. Not just the teaching coming from anyone, but teaching coming from great devotees of the Lord. And therefore he says, if I take another birth, I pray for association with his devotees. Ultimately, if we were put on notice that we were going to die, I don't think that we would associate with materialists. We would want the devotees to surround us. As far as how I should be with others, he said, I will be friendly to all living beings. Again, sometimes in a neophyte condition, devotees speak very derogatorily about the devotees. They're harming, they say with a sneer. But that's not what Maharaj Krishna does. When he says non-devotees, he says, I want to have friendship with them. Because if you don't have friendship with them, how can you possibly help them? The first item in preaching is to befriend someone. You have to make them your friend. You have to make them drop all of their hesitations, their aversions, their the various things which are built up in their minds. But in associating with them in a friendly mood, you should be very careful. You have to be very careful. Just like you see sometimes a trainer in a circus trains tigers. It looks very easy, they're standing in a whip, and the tigers are standing on the blocks and jumping through hoops of fire. They can even put their head in the tiger's mouth. But at every moment, they're very cautious. They can do all of that because of the friendship they have established, and they know what the limits are. If I don't feed this tiger, then after a while, that tiger, when I put my head in its mouth, it's going to close its jaws. They know what the conditions of the friendship are. They know, in other words, that even though the tiger has become their friend, at any moment he can become their great enemy. For someone who is not a devotee of the Lord does not work on ultimately the same rules. There are some common rules, but you should understand that the ultimate rule is that we will do whatever Krishna desires. They don't do that. They do whatever their senses dictate. But by association with us, and friendship allows someone to come very close. When it's said, let me be friendly to all living beings, it's with the understanding that every living being potentially is a devotee of the Lord. So we can associate with all kinds of persons, provided that we are strong enough. Just like a doctor does associate with all kinds of persons to inoculate them, but he's inoculated himself first. So provided that we are strong enough ourselves, then it's possible to befriend others. And that therefore must be our first order of business every day, to inoculate ourselves, to make ourselves strong in Krishna consciousness. Then it's possible to go out into the world and to befriend others. And our friendship with them will not be compromised. They'll know I'm associating with a devotee. If they don't know that they're associating with a devotee, what is the use of such friendship? Then you're not a friend at all. one who was a devotee can easily associate with all kinds of persons, providing that he never compromises. Just like Prahlad Maharaj, he was prepared to associate with his father, who was a demon, but he didn't compromise. When Prahlad was asked questions, he told the truth. He told what was the facts. If someone is not prepared to be your friend on that basis, then better to give up such association and seek out persons who will allow you to be who you are. Otherwise, it's no question of friendship. It's simply a lie. So this is the prayer. However, Prabhupada informs us that because Maharaj Parikshit was completely surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord, and because he was surrounded by representatives of the Lord, well, represented an auspicious place, by the side of the Ganga, in an auspicious company, what auspicious company? Association with the devotees. His future was guaranteed. Just recently we received, yesterday I received a message that Prabhupada's former servant, our dear godbrother, who was living here for some time, Bhaktivedanta Das, left his body. And some of you may remember Bhaktivedanta, who was living here with his family, Chitralega, and his wife and 2 children. Anyway, Bhaktivedanta had been really more or less outside the association of the devotees for many years, and doing so many nonsense activities. Still, he did not forget the devotees, and he was always thinking. He would write me from time to time and say, I wish that there was some way I could come back into the association with devotees. It's not easy when you leave the association with devotees to come back, because your mind is set in a different way. So many impressions come to mind, so many instructions are created, erected in your thoughts, your desires come somewhat different. And yet you have this lingering sense that I wish I could come into the association with devotees. So he was constantly thinking like that. And gradually, when there was Prabhupada's centennial, the devotees in Australia sent him a ticket, because he had been one of the first to open Krishna Consciousness in Australia. And so they paid for his ticket. And in their association, speaking Prabhupada's remembrances, Upendra became more and more convinced that now he had to come back into the association with devotees. Simultaneously, he has also been suffering from a liver disease, chronic liver disease, and it was diagnosed by the doctors that it would eventually prove fatal. So he went back to America, and then the devotees in Australia again sent him a ticket. And he was quite ill. In fact, as he made the trip, he became unconscious on the plane. And for many hours he was unconscious. And the people on the plane, stewardesses and captains, they didn't know what to do. In fact, they should have turned the plane back when someone reaches a condition like this, because they had not yet reached their stopping off spot. And technically they were supposed to turn back as many hours in the air to land back where they had taken off from, but they didn't. And Upendra wrote me a letter after finally arriving in Australia. He said that during that whole time, one stewardess kept telling everyone that we should just go on. He wants to go on. She said that he was communicating with her. And in fact, Upendra confirmed this. He said that he was calling out, please take me to Australia. He could somehow, in his deep consciousness, understand something of what was going on. And he was begging them not to turn around, because he knew that if he turned around, he'd land back in the material world, where he had nobody to take care of him. And he was just trying to communicate in his deep, unconscious or subconscious condition through his subtle body. And this stewardess was able, to be able to pick up on what he said. She convinced him to just keep going. He will be all right. He won't die on the plane. I know this. So he landed there, was taken to the New Bhaktivedanta community in Australia, and the devotees began to look after him. And eventually he fell into a coma because the conditions are irreversible. The devotees surrounded him, but then he came back into consciousness. And for the last 2 or 3 days he took nothing, no liquids, no eating, and was full of consciousness, constantly meditating on the form of Sri Sri Purnitai, and big kirtans were going on, and then with full consciousness he left his body. So this is the result, of the process which Prabhupada has given us. Here's a person who did not follow the process through all the way, still he achieved perfection. I mean, this is the same perfection, at least in terms of his appearance. He took full shelter of the deity. He was in a favorable place in Govardhan. He was surrounded by devotees who were constantly singing the deeds of Lord Vishnu, Krishna, and he gave up his body. This is the arrangement that Prabhupada has made. We can just appreciate how ideally we are situated now. We're all, so caught up in our various situations that we tend to forget how ideal the arrangement is. So many friends who are devotees. We all have in the shelter of deity, holy name, underneath water. It is a perfect arrangement. Prabhupada doesn't make that thing. When other persons come from other societies, even one within the society, and suggest that this kind is short of this and that, this kind of leaders and this and that, you should basically follow me instead. I think that they don't, the disappearance, departure of someone like Patrick just makes all of the words turn to meaningless. Prabhupada knew very well what the condition of the Kali Yuga is. He knows very well what the people of every country are like now. He's created a perfect arrangement. He's giving us a perfect movement, a perfect process. He said, just chant 16 rounds a day, follow his 4 regulative principles, and live in association with devotees, and you go back to God. What could be easier? Still, so many of us, minimize that those instructions. Those are primary instructions. Everything else is detail that can be adjusted. Chant 16 rounds, you follow 4 regulative principles, and live in the association with devotees, and you'll go back to God. So this is the example given us by Maharaj Krishna, and we see 5,000 years later, a very ordinary person, Wayne Gunderson, his name was, who got initiated as Bhaktivedanta, became attached to this movement, its leader, and, at the most important time of his life, the moment of death, he left his body. Any questions? Yes, Ed.
You're thinking about how useful our activities are. Some of them are for economic, different things. I was had a question about the verse of our view we shouldn't be attached to not doing our duty. We should be attached to the result of the action.
And we should be attached to Krishna. Whatever we do, we should think, who's the enjoyer? Who are you doing your activities for? If you're a girl and you're putting on your makeup, who are you putting it on? Is it please Krishna? If you're going to school, who are you doing it for? If you're raising your children, for whom are you doing it? If you're making some business, who is it actually for? If it's not I mean, say that's really not your motive. Truly your motive in your heart. That is not bhakti. It's at best Mishra bhakti. And at worst, it's just fun. Or if you're studying, just again. Krishna said, fight, remember me. If your mind fixed on me, fight. So we have to try to put Krishna in the center instead of our false egos. That is Krishna. It's not a demand that you must do this such and such service as opposed to such and such service. The idea of why we're engaged in particular services is only because certain services are more suitable to the particular modes of nature which protect us. So it becomes easier if we engage according to those modes to remember Krishna. The purpose is to remember Krishna. Another question?
In associating with harmonies and becoming their friends, as Sankirtan members and people who preach, we are not always in the midst of other devotees in the temple and our society here, or wherever we may be, wherever his content may be. How can somebody go about remembering Krishna in the midst of being so overpopular with the harmonies and the material world, and being in the middle of Maya, and it's so large and so over?
Well, it's not as easy in the beginning as it will be later on. You have to understand that the nature of your disease is just becoming animal. Like someone who has an illness says, how do I get well? Well, first of all, you're already doing well by recognizing you have a disease. Now, the process of recovering from the disease takes time. But because you're making the effort, Krishna will protect you, and you won't succumb and become again like those persons you're trying to prevent. But your ability to remember Krishna in their midst is going to increase proportionately as you spend more time practicing Krishna consciousness. The morning program is an inoculation. Going through the morning program in the temple is an inoculation against Maya. You won't succumb to Maya if you go through the morning program. But as far as really being able to remember Krishna at all times, that takes some effort. It takes some time to become so deeply immersed in the remembrance of Krishna. Look at Prahlad. He was so deeply immersed that his father put him in a pot of boiling oil, and he didn't get burned. Krishna protected him and cooled it off. Now that stage is a very occult stage. But at least we can come to the point that Krishna will allow us to constantly remember him, even if we're the only person amidst many, many other devotees. It takes time. You have to be patient.
The example of the prayer was very nice. Krishna blessed him because he was living in that situation. He wanted to be right for a long time. That was a bit, sometimes we see a very sincere devotee, but they can completely end up in such a challenging situation.
And everything depends upon the mind. If one is humble, if one desires sincerely, it just depends on what is in the heart. If there are many material desires still festering, then one may be lured away.
If someone
Someone has the character of what?
In some sense, a car accident. A very sincere devotee.
Those circumstances don't betray everything. We cannot judge everything simply by external appearance. Someone suddenly dies on synchrotron of a car accident. I don't think we should necessarily conclude what a terrible way to go. You cannot say that within their minds they did not remember Krishna at that moment. You cannot say also that they will not be recipients of Krishna's special mercy under such an extraordinary circumstance. That's the end.
Same question.
All right. Let us end here. Shri Shri Radha Kalachandji Ki. Shri Jagannath Baladev Bhaktivedanta Ki. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki. Gauri Sai Ki. Prabhupada Ki. Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki. Gaur Premanandi Ki.